Thank you all very much for joining me on stage. Can I please ask you all to quickly introduce yourself, your firms, and your positions or your responsibilities?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lolita Sufyan. I am the Senior Vice President for Customer Experience for Bank Simpanan Nasional. Bank Simpanan Nasional in Malaysia is the national bank for Malaysia under the Ministry of Finance.
Hi everyone, I'm Jackson Oh. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Inex Bank. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Ant International. And being a digital bank, we have no branches. So we are one of the digital banks that started in 2022, together with the rest of the pool that got the licenses. And we only serve SMEs in Singapore.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Fred, Singaporean. I've been working in Vietnam for the last 10 years. Prior to Hong Leong Bank, I was actually the retail head for UOB, where we started the retail and digital bank 10 years back in Vietnam. And the most recent 2 years, I was actually the CEO of a digital bank, TNEX. So I've actually a good 10 years experience running a digital business or retail business, specifically in Vietnam.
Great. Thank you very much, all of you, and welcome again. So between the three of us, I think we can cover all of the Southeast Asian markets, or the core ones, quite clearly. We have Malaysia, we have Singapore there, and Vietnam. So Jackson, maybe let me start with you. I mean, you started by saying that you're a digital-only bank. You don't have any physical touch points. So how do you put together a customer journey that is secure and also instant for your clients, for your SME clients?
I mean, when the bank started, the whole framing was that we wanted to build a human-centered design. And of course, it has to be digital for us. And coming from, the mindset that we have to ensure that it's accessible to our SMEs, we really started from looking at it from a digital-only channel that allows the SMEs to access the financial products that the bank will provide through our ecosystem. We have worked very closely with a few of our partners in Singapore because embedded finance, while it's a big word, it's really about ensuring these services are accessible to our customers, especially the merchants who, in Singapore, there's never a big part about being unbanked. It's more about underbanking in most cases, and being able to allow these merchants to access the financial services at the point that they need. It could be a POS terminal, it could be others. So we are trying to work with our partners to enable that. We also think that it's super important that the SMEs are able to transact with us, not just through the mobile app or through the online banking channel. We also think that being able to access and talk to us through our customer service as well as the AI agents that we are providing to them are also key. So we have been investing in this direction of trying to come up with the conversational topics that the SMEs are curious and concerned about, and working on those to provide the experience that SMEs want. Yeah.
What have been some of the main pain points that the SMEs have been telling you about?
I mean, for our pool of SMEs, they are really those that are growing from Singapore base. They are those that are maybe unable to get a funding because they are new to the entire industry that they are breaking into. So these SMEs, actually, the feedback is generally about getting access to the financial products that banks typically provide to the more mature SMEs. Whether is it thin file SMEs getting to thicker file. But to us, at the end of the day, there is a risk proportionate thinking that we need to have to underwrite some of these SMEs. Like I said, we work very closely with the ecosystem partners. And from a data perspective, from a seamless journey perspective, is to make sure that the SMEs who are able to access these financial products can get them as quickly as they are, able to share those data with us. So that's really the trick to what we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Fred, let me bring you into the conversation. So Vietnam is one of the fastest digitizing markets, but is also fast evolving for frauds. How do you balance the speed of digital rollout with security hardening? And I know we discussed this in a pre-panel call, but what advantages does Vietnam have from its own ecosystem point of view versus other Southeast Asian markets?
I think first thing is, this is not just about Vietnam. I think globally, right, between convenience and security, it's not a tossed up. It's a given that customer expects both convenience and security. And it starts with designing security at launch, not after launch. So specifically in Vietnam, or the way we operate our business model is we adopted a 3-layer of checks, or the way we manage risk. The first layer will be actually the single source of truth, where in Vietnam there is this VNEID, or National Registry, where everybody is subscribed to, similar to the SingPass in Singapore, but not with that much of depth in terms of connectivity with public and private institution, but it's definitely something that is forward-looking. And once the adoption gets a lot more better, it actually provides a very scalable source for us to actually do digital onboarding, transaction tracking, etc. So that's the first layer that we're looking at, which is the National Registry, the VNEID. The second one will be the bank fraud credit models or fraud models that typically banks will build within the system to be monitoring, detecting fraud transactions, etc., etc. And the third layer will be the ecosystem layer, where we are actually embedded within the customer's lives, within the customer's workflow, understanding their day-to-day, understanding what's the trend, and being able to pick up anomalies as soon as possible. So with this three tiers or 3 layers approach, right, we are able to actually effectively manage the fraud risk that is actually coming to us.
Thank you, Fred. We'll come back to that embedded point a bit later in the conversation because both of you, Jackson and Fred, mentioned that. But Lolita, I mean, the others come from a bit more of a technical background. You're in the heart of things. You're actually doing customer experience. What has resonated from what they have told so far? What are you doing that's the same, and what are you doing that's different at your bank?
I think what both of them are saying in terms of security, how you predict it, how you assess the risk, how you, how the risk team and the compliance teams try to stop and mitigate the risks, the frauds or the scams and everything like that. It's I would say virtually the same across all banks because, we share best practices, right? Okay, so I guess what CX comes in, and this is something that I do a lot with my compliance team, is tell them, okay, I know you want to stop a transaction. I know you want to stop, from things from moving. I want to stop, make a certain future pop up and everything like that. But you have to always have in mind whether this is a friction for the customer. Okay, and I work with them a lot in coming up with communications, okay, education packs for the customers so that they are aware. Customers are not mad that we're trying to, keep them safe. They're okay with it. It's really expected because, like what Fred said, when you have a product, they expect you to keep them safe from the beginning, not after something is launched, right? Okay, it's from the beginning. It's from the onset. Banks are supposed to be safe. Banks are supposed to be safe for me to do transactions. Banks are supposed to be safe for me to do anything on it, on the app or even at branches. Yeah, but it's how you communicate it to the customer, how you make sure that the friction is intentional. They are okay with it. All right, and making our compliance team and our fraud team understand that, especially the comms part. That's where CX, I really play a huge role in that within the bank.
How much of the onus is on the customers, the clients themselves versus the banks when it comes to mitigating risks?
I think it's 50-50 now. Okay, it's no longer just the bank's responsibility. I know the regulators in Malaysia, I'm not quite sure in the rest of the APAC region, but in Malaysia, regulators comes hard on the local banks saying like, it's your responsibility to keep your customers safe. It's your responsibility to keep your customers safe. Yes, I agree. And the banks have done a lot, technology-wise, education-wise, in making that, for the customers. However, it is also the customer's choice to share their password. It is also the customer's choice to rent their account to some unknown person for, 500 ringgit per month or 300 ringgit per month. That is beyond the bank's control. It is also the customer's choice to sell their identity cards online, for rent, for mule accounts, right? So it should be a 50-50 thing. In terms of scam education, I think all banks in any country is, always doing that. Even the governments, the regulators and everything like that. But the accountability should also be at a customer because it is your choice. If you can't play the victim all the time, frankly speaking.
Jackson, I see you nodding along. Please go on.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of what Lolita was saying about the risk as well as how the compliance and the CX team have to work together. In Next, we actually believe strongly that we have to protect our customers from day one, from the start of the journey. And we use three-factor authentication, which is basically facial verification, as a point for payments authorization. However, it introduces the friction. In order to keep them secure, now you have to perform a facial verification when you do a payment transfer, which can be pretty annoying to some of the merchants. But a lot of our SMEs are also single operators. So for them, being able to deduce that maybe this supplier, this invoice that you're paying out could be a scam or a fraud, they might not have that capability, especially if they are growing, they are, in a rush. So we believe strongly that these controls are needed. And I think it's always a balance between giving the choice to the SMEs to decide if you want to not take up this control, it must be a consent-based approach. And we believe strongly in that, to protect them. Yeah.
Is that impacting the way you look at innovation overall in terms of, how do you balance the security angle of it without crimping on innovation or fast innovation?
I don't think there's really a one size fits all zero whole pie approach. But I think at the end of the day, the fraudsters are getting smarter with AI especially. We are seeing a lot of I would say made up documents that might not be as easy to detect going forward, and we on our side have to innovate to counter these fraudsters as well. Maybe our biggest challenge right now is trying to understand some of these best practices that the fraudsters, which the regulators have been sharing with us very openly. We work and share best practices with the other banks too. So all of us are really in this journey together, trying to combat it. Yeah.
Fred, what's your take?
I just wanted to add on to this, the three FA checks, right? I mean, checks are all there. It's uniform, but it's actually how we apply it, how intelligently we put it into works. I'll just give you a simple example, right? So when we are working with an ecosystem, we observe the transaction behaviors. We know who are the suppliers they are dealing with, and if these are all the accepted, day-to-day transactions which are normal, that checks can actually be watered down or even invisible. And when it hits a new, supplier, a transaction that is out of norm, that's where you put in more intervention. You actually make it a lot more, intuitive in terms of going to the customers, validating transactions. That's probably how you can actually manage that 3FA to make it, more relevant to customers, because you know them through the data. You know them better, and you're able to actually tweak the response on how the bank can actually respond and protect the customers. On the part about responsibility between bank and customers, I don't think it's a deliberation of whether it's a 50-60% between parties. I feel that fraud is something that's organized crime, and organized crime, right, requires everybody in the industry to come together to fight against it. And everybody in the industry includes the customers, the banks, the regulators, the ecosystems. And I think in the case of Vietnam, we do have the State Bank of Vietnam. We do have the police department that hosts regular workshops or dialogues with the industry players, outlining recent fraud trends, what are the things to look out for, etc. Within the industry, we do talk to each other informally in terms of sharing of best practices. With ecosystem partners, we also figure out, working with them, using the data sets that they have, what can we do to actually create early warning signals? What can we do to do ongoing monitoring? So, and on the customer's part of it, we launch a regular education content to actually, raise to them some of these latest fraud trends, what to look out for as a user. So I think it's a collective effort of the community to make this whole thing work.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. So frauds, scams, it's been a big topic in Southeast Asia for the last 12, 18 months. I came across this report from Oliver Wyman. It's slightly old, I think a couple of years old, which said that in Southeast Asia, total losses exceeded $5 billion due to scams. I'm guessing the number is perhaps a bit higher now. It attributed the rise to more mobile banking apps, instant payment systems, use of AI, and the introduction of real-time cross-border payments in ASEAN. Money mules were also mentioned, and you mentioned that, Lolita, so let me start with you. So mule accounts are a national issue in Malaysia. Are there any specific interventions that you've taken to detect and prevent mule activity? And what more do you think needs to be done by banks and the regulators beyond just education? Let's try to be a bit more practical in terms of solutions, in terms of how we can mitigate some of these risks.
Okay, so mule accounts is really huge in Malaysia. Okay, and it's becoming kind of like a pandemic in the financial world for us in Malaysia itself. I like what the Singapore government is doing. Okay, so this one I learned from Jackson. So in Singapore, apparently, if you are found willingly give your identity, right, or to someone else, and it becomes a mule account, not only the the syndicate will be punished, but also the person who gives up that identity, because you should have known better. I'm actually trying to champion that in my country. Okay? Because right now, it's all the responsibility in Malaysia is on the bank, right? And as I said, I'm very practical in customer experience. I think, yes, we should champion customers, but we've got to be practical about it. Customers are not always right. I always say this, okay? Customers are not always right. If you are a victim and you willingly do it, okay, you surrender your identity because of you wanted more payment, just because you're greedy, that accountability should be on you, okay? It should not be on the bank. The bank has done as much as they can to help you prevent this from happening, right? So yeah, that's my take on it.
All right, okay. Jackson, go on.
Yeah, maybe just to add on a little bit from my side, from NX Bank, we look at Money Mule as really a series of bad actors, organized crimes, like what Fred was saying. And I think we have used many times images to correspond Money Mule's behavior within the bank accounts. So because of our 3FA, we do keep a record of all the authorized approvals. And based on those images, we have been able to pick up certain trends and certain patterns. And of course, our police network, the MAS, they share regularly the identities of those that they suspect or are being investigated. And with the strong laws in Singapore, so yeah, it's kind of helping to the extent.
Fred?
So we just want to narrate this experience that we have with Hong Leong. So we've partnered with this SaaS company, a business management platform that actually provides solutions to small businesses. They do e-tax invoice, issuance, accounting, etc. And with this kind of data, right, we are able to identify anomalies when transaction comes through and it doesn't matches with the profile of the business that we are banking. And that actually helps us to actually create that early warning trigger to be able to reach out to customers to investigate and to do what's necessary.
Are you doing a lot of collaboration with the State Bank of Vietnam or industry peers on fraud intelligence sharing?
Like I said earlier, I mean, there is this a regular dialogue chaired by the State Bank of Vietnam, participated by all the banks and including the public security or police, where there will be a sharing session. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to maybe customer education and design. So Lolita, I mean, you mentioned that a few times that customer education is important. It's not just all the headache of the banks that they need to sort it out. What kind of education strategies have actually worked for BSN? And how do you measure whether the education is actually reducing fraud losses for customers?
Okay, so BSN is a bit unique in Malaysia because, in my introduction, we're actually part of MOF, right? So part of MOF, our tagline is no Malaysians left behind. And because we're under the government, we actually have a huge network of branches we have the biggest branches, the largest branch network in Malaysia with 379 branches across 13 states in Malaysia. Now, with that, we actually embed ourselves with the local community because we are part of the community. We serve the community, right? Education over social media, TV, radio, and everything, it's a norm. And people tend to tune off out of it because it's like, oh, this is just another, scam notice. I'll never get scammed. Right? So when we are part of the community, this is where we go to school education, university education, and we do a lot of it, like open days in branches. Because again, we're in the communities, the smaller communities, the elderly communities, the student communities, and when we look at the data of who are the people who's very prone to scam, is I would say mature age customers and also the younger customers. A really fast trending scam that's coming on right now is fresh graduate scams in Malaysia. Fresh graduates apparently don't know that if you want to apply for a job, you don't have to pay for it. We're talking about 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, graduate of a university, and they click online for a job advertisement, and the job advertisement says, hey, pay 100 ringgit for administration fee for you to go for an interview. And they actually transfer the money and pay for it. And I'm like, okay. So these are the kind of educations that we need to really go down and, talk to them. And even the older generations, right? Facebook selling, marketplace selling. It's like not every person in marketplace is honest. So we go to, we have like Solat Jumaat. It's every Friday. The mosque in Malaysia, there's a huge community of people going for prayers at the same time. So we use that opportunity after prayers to set up like education booths and actually targeting the elderly people and telling them, you have to be cautious. You need to be careful. Ask your family member, ask your son, ask your daughter before you want to transfer the money. Because we see direct transfers are very, very, very prevalent with this age group instead of, clicking on links. They don't click on links. But if someone say, would you like to have a donut for, 30 ringgit? They probably say, okay, here. So we want to stop that. So going to communities.
Yeah, I guess that answers a question that I see coming up from Slido. How does BSN bring digital CX to the elderly?
Okay, do you want to take now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so. All right, so digital CX to the elderly. Our app is, I would say it's not the most advanced, sexy app out there in the market, all right? We only launched our app about 2 years ago. BSN, all right? When every other bank has app, we only launched it about 2-3 years ago because we're very branch heavy, right? We're everywhere in Malaysia. It's very easy for you to go to a local community and there is a BSN branch, right? And you can walk in. So when we did our app, we were very intentional about it. We made sure that the app is simple, straightforward, all right? Because our target audience, to make it no Malaysian left behind. That means it's from the young to the really digital savvy and also the elderly customers, all right? To make it simple enough for them to say, oh, I want to check balance. I just click this. Very simple layout, less clicking so that they know where they should go. And we were also very intentional. When you transfer money, we have pop-ups coming up. Are you sure that you want to transfer this? Are you sure this is the person you know? So yes, it's very intentional how we do it. It's very simple, very straightforward.
Yeah, maybe just to add a bit of color from ANX as well. We serve owners between the ages of 18 all the way to 92. So we have a wide range. We also in Singapore have a lot of the hawkers because they work very closely with our sister company ePOS, which is a POS provider for their, when you scan a QR, you get a pay in, then you hear the sound box, ding ding, that kind of thing. So we work very closely with these partners because we believe that the friction for these merchants, in order for them to not get frauded, to able to get these transactions right from the start, the partners together with us have to enable this, whether is it a simple verification between the bank and the POS or other mechanisms. Those are the ones that we want to build it from the start. The elderly in Singapore, they are not those maybe elderly in other countries, maybe from a point of view that they are quite tech savvy. They want to learn tech. But I think a lot of them also rely on their children for them to access the bank accounts. We actually see a lot of cases where they add operators as the children who only manages their accounts for them on the weekend, or on the weekday they are the ones running the business. So we see that quite a lot. So we believe strongly that when the messaging is sent to this elderly, we try to make sure that it's simple enough for them to get it, but we also expect some family members to co-share this responsibility together with them. There's a bit of a uniqueness in Singapore because the hawkers generally are the aging population, although we have younger hawkers nowadays too. Yeah.
What about you, Fred?
When the question asked was, what would be an
Embedding
effective way
education.
to educate customers, right? A simple question back to the audience is, when was the last time that you received this, fraud prevention emails from your banks, and you actually spend more than 5 seconds reading it, or you spend 5 seconds actually turning this into the junk folder, right? So most of these emails and all that we sent, we felt good. We felt that we're actually trying to help customers. But the truth of the matter is, probably less than half actually opens up the email and read in full what you're writing. So the best prevention or best education for fraud, right, actually should happen at the point of transaction. With the data that we have, with the technology that we have, if the bank is able to intervene at any point in time when an anomaly is identified and tells the customer, hey, pause, think again before you press the button, that will be the best education. More effective than the email that you send, reminding them, please be vigilant, please be careful with your password. And that's where I feel, bank can leverage on technology, on data, to present a different experience, to better help customers and safeguard their interests.
Thank you. Let's move back to another point that you both mentioned at the beginning of the conversation on embedded finance. So let me start with you, Fred. I know Hong Leong has made efforts to embed the bank into the workflow of SMEs to give them a seamless journey. Can you talk about how that works in reality, what some of the benefits are, what have been some of the challenges, and whether this is something more banks should consider?
I think in Hong Leong, we recognize that, the world is getting more and more interconnected, integrated. And, banks are no longer able to perform that role as being institutions waiting for the customers to come to you. Bank needs to be a part of the customer's life, a part of the customer's workflow. And this is where, in Hong Leong Bank, the first country that we have tried in Vietnam, is to actually embed the bank within the customer's workflow. So they don't need to actually go down to the app store to download a banking app. They actually open a banking app within the workflow that they are having with the SaaS company. They don't need to go to the banking app to do transactions because they can usually do that within the SaaS platform. And I think that's the whole seamless integrated experience that we have given to the customers where, instead of managing multiple apps to basically, fulfill different facets of your life's needs, it's actually happening within one platform, one single view, one single experience. And I think that itself brings a value to the customers in terms of convenience. In terms of security, we are able to then amalgamate all the data that we can get, both from the banking side and from the platform, to be able to underwrite better, understand customers better, provide better experience and services to customers.
Thank you, Fred. Jackson, I know embedded finance is core to your model as well. Can you talk to us about how you're implementing it?
Sure. I mean, from an e-commerce perspective, we actually have a sister company called World First. So we work very closely with them and with other e-commerce partners as well. I mean, like what Fred said, being able to, real time know that the cash flow, the transaction data that's coming in, and being able to maybe help them offer a fixed deposit so that they can place a fixed deposit with the bank through the wallet. And honestly, a lot of e-commerce merchants today, they literally run their businesses on the Air Wallets, the Aspire equivalent of that in Singapore. And working with these partners and bring the capabilities of the bank to service the merchants is what we are thinking from an embedded finance space. Like what Fred said, we bring the services to them so that they don't have to leave the ecosystem. I think for ANext, we are also particularly I would say, very keen to make sure that these SMEs who are coming out from China and Hong Kong to explore the region use ANEX as one of the launch pad for their businesses. So we have partnered with quite a number of China, Hong Kong-based payment providers as well, in order for them to offer these services to come out and bank with us, as well as continue to use the payment wallets for the funds, payments, and payouts and all that, but to really expand into the region. So that's from our M5 perspective.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder to the audience to please keep your questions coming in. You have the Slido QR code on your tables. Let me start taking some questions. We've still got a few more minutes to go. I'll start with one that all of you can perhaps answer. Oh, I don't see that anymore. There was a question earlier about what is the one fraud risk that you think everyone's underestimating at the moment. I'm sure you all have perhaps, what's one fraud trend you're seeing right now that most customers still underestimate? I'm hoping that all of you have a slightly different answer to that. So Lolita, maybe I'll start with you.
AI scams. Yeah. So this happened, I think, about a year and a half ago. A CFO in Malaysia wanted to transfer, I think, 20 million from her bank. I won't name which bank is that, but in Malaysia it was a big hoo-ha. But she was a senior member of leadership, a CFO of a very prominent bank in Malaysia. And she wanted to transfer 20 million into an account because she said she got instructions from the CEO. And it was a video call. It wasn't him. And if she could get scammed, that's something that we really, really need to work on prevention on. Because it's coming.
I think video definitely. I think with voice as well, it's very, very easy to use AI to generate voices of someone else today, and it's very scary. I think a lot of the SMEs operate based on WhatsApp recordings. Imagine getting a recording from someone that sounds exactly like your father, your mother, and then asking you to do certain things. That actually is one of the trends that we are quite worried about.
Yeah, and I just want to add on this. There's so many apps going on right now. AI apps that will beautify you or make videos and stuff like that. I'm very cautious about downloading those apps because what those apps are doing are farming your voice, they're farming your identity, you're farming your facial recognition and everything like that. My kids are like, wow, I can do this now, I can do that now. But I told them to get off the app because I'm scared. Because this is where, this people are getting all our facials, our recognition, and this is how they get better and better and better in copying us. And that's quite dangerous. And I think that's something that a lot of people, not just customers, but everyone is underestimating. Oh, it's just an app for fun. But what is the cost and effect in the long run?
Scary thought. Fred?
This is specific to Vietnam. I think Vietnam, we experienced a peak fraud experience in the year of 23, 24. And it kind of tapered down, 25, 26. And a large part of it was powered because of the national identity, customer awareness, and of course, the bank stepping up in terms of putting in all the guardrails. But notwithstanding that, right, incidence has dropped. The amount of money that's being, involved is actually getting more. And it's I think one of the biggest trends, like what the two panel has said, right, is about the rising trend of AI, deep fakes and all. These are real, right? These are happening as of today. I just spoke to an associate recently, got scammed 80,000 because somehow, somewhere within that chat, something came in and they did a transfer. And it just happened so fast. And I think this is where, again, like I said, right, if at the transactional level, the bank is able to intervene timely for such dubious transactions that's out of the norm, that could have saved the 80,000 that's being cheated. Yeah.
Right. Lolita, I think it's a question for you. Not entirely sure if you could answer it, but let's have a look. What is BSN's market share for mule accounts versus overall market share? And what tech interventions is BSN implementing to safeguard customers?
Okay, our mule accounts is not as much as the other banks because we're not that big. We only have about 9 million customers as opposed to one of the biggest banks in Malaysia with 29 million. Okay, so our share is actually smaller because obviously scammers would target the bigger banks, right? So hang on. And what tech intervention is BNC implementing to safeguard customers? Okay, so we learn from the big brothers, from the other banks and everything like that. So we have, we take data, we look at behavior, we look at transactions, and we safeguard customers. That what we're trying to do right now is do preventive. Like for example, this just happened this week. So a customer just got her EPF savings transferred into her account, which is a BSN account, right? And it's a lot because it's her life savings from EPF, which is kind of like CFP in Singapore, right? Yeah, CPF, yeah, in Singapore. So she got a huge load, which is about 180,000. That's a lot for her. And 180,000, it came to us. It's immediately set up an alert because a huge transaction just came into her account. And we started seeing that she started transactioning because she always do small amounts, and suddenly she did one large amount transaction to another person, which is non-BSN customer, but it's out of the ordinary. So we immediately blocked her account. When she got blocked, she called the contact center as usual and started yelling because the contact center explained to her, look, this is suspicious. Do you know who it is? And she kept saying, it's genuine, it's genuine, it's genuine. Release my account. I need to transfer more, right? And then our contact center set up an alert, and within 10, 15 minutes, our fraud team called the customer. Fraud team spent 3 hours talking to her, convincing her that it was a Macau scam. And she finally believed it after the 3rd hour, broke down. Because, and I understand her, because no customer would want to be accused, hey, you're a victim of fraud, right? It was a shock to her. But after that, she was very thankful. And, you know, she wrote a really nice note, even though it was very traumatic for her, but she wrote a note. It's like, you guys saved me from my account being, you know, her life savings gone. So, yeah, so those safeguards are there, all right? But it's also, again, going back to the customers and our, you know, it's a 50-50 relationship. Imagine if our contact center agent just took it for granted and said, look, the customer said release, let me just release it, right? And not taking the time to say, hey, we need to talk to her and really convince her, and that's what we did.
Thank you. I think the next couple of questions maybe could be taken as one. We only got 2 more minutes left. Are banks taking advantage of corporate and retail cyber insurance solutions? What ways can cyber insurance be improved to bridge any gaps? And agreed on the point that customers should also be partially responsible. Would insurance be the way? Jackson, Fred, do either of you want to have a go?
Maybe I have a go at it. Right now, ANX Bank doesn't offer any of these corporate or cyber insurance solutions to the SMEs. Like I said earlier, we firmly believe that the trust architecture that the bank provides needs to be something that's appropriate to the SMEs. Like I said about, you know, the children helping the father, mother, you know, operate the hawkers. We allow this multi-operators use case, which is free. It's entirely up to the merchants to decide how they want to operate their business, and the humans who are in the loop and who are approving this and detecting the fraud, we hope that they enlist as many of their family members as possible who are trusted to do that thing. From the insurance perspective, I do believe that in future, unfortunately, AI will scale in a very scary way, that we have to consider this more seriously. I think we do think that insurance could offer some help to the merchants in a sense to safeguard their bottom line to the certain extent. But we also don't think that is the only way. Yeah.
Fred, final words, perhaps.
Cyber insurance definitely is something that we are looking at right now. I think that there are a few things that we felt this is important. With this in place, it probably makes digital adoption a lot more robust. People feel more confident. But this probably requires a more detailed sit down with the banks, the ecosystem players, and even customers to figure out what are the right solutions and all. Because to make this sustainable, that solution needs to be able to be very targeted and effective. Yeah.
Excellent. I think that brings us to a wrap. Thank you very much, Lolita, Jackson, Fred, for your time. And thank you all to the audience for listening and for asking questions. A big round of applause for the panelists, please.